So obviously it's the second rest day. So how has the first 2 weeks gone overall? How do you feel?
The first 2 weeks have been a real emotional roller coaster. First week started off amazingly. I was sitting in the top 10 in the general classification. Felt like I had the entire country behind me. Just the amount of support and well wishes was overwhelming, and the fact that I was doing the tour for the first time was just this incredible high. Then I had this big crash, both literally and figuratively. I crashed in the final corner before the final climb of stage 8, and went from being a GC contender to losing a bunch of time and taking out the guy who took yellow last year, Geraint Thomas, and that was certainly a low. Since that day and the day before, we also had TJ Van Garderen crash out. We lost time the next day in the crosswinds, or 2 days later in the crosswinds. It was a low. Then finally I crashed again and broke my ribs, broke 2 ribs. So I went from this real high, and even after crashing the first time behind Geraint Thomas, I felt like I still was going to be able to pursue my original target of winning a stage. And then to have crashed again and broken my ribs, I really felt like that opportunity slipped away from me. But in the days since, it's kind of been a nice rise again, and I'm feeling much better about everything, and just enjoying the fact that I'm still at the tour. Going up the Tourmalet was this incredible high. I had an amazing time on that stage, and each day my ribs seem to be feeling a bit better.
So how did the crashes come about? What was the sort of circumstances behind them?
The first crash was pilot error. I went through a corner, my rear rail slipped out. I think it was just bad luck. I've been descending well throughout this tour and in the lead up. I hadn't crashed until this race all season. I was having a really nice season, but I think I just hit a bad patch in the road, maybe some grease on the road, and tires slid out. Surprised me. Surprised me. I didn't expect to be going down. I thought I was through the corner. The second crash that broke the ribs was a crash where there's a big pileup. And at the tour, it's a bit different than any other bike race. Normally, only one guy would go down in that type of scenario, but there's a giant pileup, and I just managed to get a foot down, managed to avoid the carnage, kind of, but then felt like I was at a wave pool. Big wave riders just came up behind me, pushed me, and I ended up falling down and landing on my radio. My radio went right into my ribs, and I instantly knew something was not great. I just felt a lot of pain in the ribs, and my mobility was significantly reduced.
So obviously it's the last week now, and Rigoberto was sitting quite nicely in the top 10. How's the next week going to pan out for you?
Well, certainly protecting Rigo's GC, trying to move him up, trying to be a bit more aggressive in this race, trying to get a bit further up on the GC would be great with Rigo. And then I managed to get in the breakaway yesterday and felt really good. And I think that moving forward, I was held back. I think on that stage, just with breathing, my ribs still bothering me a bit. I didn't feel like I was 100%. But I think with a few more days of rest, a few more days of flat stages, by the time we get to the Alps, I may still be able to tackle a stage win.
So you are going to try and target some stages in the coming week. Is there any that stand out on paper that could be potentially?
Yeah, I mean 18, 19, and 20 are all days that are going to be very difficult stages and opportunities for a breakaway to go to the line. It's just, for me, it's going to be a question of how much I'll be inhibited by my ribs. Breathing's still difficult, standing's difficult. Sleeping's really, really tough. Each night I haven't had a great sleep just because of the discomfort. But my mobility has improved, and I'm learning how to deal with the pain of the ribs a bit better.
And obviously after the tour, are there any plans to race in any of the races in Canada, the World Tour ones, Quebec, Montreal, or?
Yeah, certainly. Those are two big goals for me this year. I heard Montreal's added 2 extra laps, making the race more difficult, more challenging, and favoring a guy like me more. So I'm excited to be doing that one particularly, especially because it's so close to my house. It's only a 2-hour drive away, and I know a lot of guys from back home in Ottawa ride out to that race to watch. So I'm really excited to be doing that one again.
And so you've had a lot of well wishes from back in Canada. How does that sort of make you feel, especially after your crash and you were getting sort of messages of sort of get well and things like that?
Oh yeah, I think it just I feel really fortunate and I feel really lucky to be Canadian, to be representing such a great country, and also to have so many people wishing me well. I'm certainly not taking the fact that I'm racing in the Tour de France for granted. I'm enjoying this immensely, and the fact that there's so many Canadians back home cheering for me just gives me a lot of pride and gets me really excited.
So after 2 weeks so far, has it lived up to expectation, been better, been worse?
I think it's met all those expectations. I think that's why the tour is so special, is that particularly for me, normally when you're a kid and you watch something, because I did start watching the tour when I was quite young, you watch something and you see the magic of it as a kid, and often as you get older, that magic kind of dwindles just through experience. However, the expectations that I had of the tour when I was 14, 15, 16 are still have been met now as a 32-year-old, which is really special for me and something I'm really enjoying.
So finally, do you have anything to say to the folks back at home, or any opinions or comments that you'd like to make about your experience?
Oh, I just feel really fortunate to have so many people cheer me on, and I feel a lot of pride, and honestly that support and those well wishes are propelling me forward. I think there's a reason why it's one of the biggest reasons why I'm still racing. I could have abandoned after breaking those 2 ribs, and the temptation to quit was quite strong. But the fact that so many people are rooting for me has really propelled me to continue on.
So have you seen many Canadian fans by the roadside as you've passed with flags or banners or anything?
Oh yeah, for sure. I've seen one guy who's actually dressed up as a Mountie every day.
Does he have a horse?
No horse, but big Canadian flag, and I try and give a thumbs up to all the Canadian fans.
That's great. Thanks for sparing the time.
No problem.
Cheers.